A Texas oil town goes bust. Would housing immigrants for the feds solve its problems? The derricks along Highway 44 were still this month after the price of oil tanked and 24 oil field companies vanished. The booming tax base that buoyed the town of Alice evaporated, unemployment surged above 10% and county government cut 21 jobs, with more layoffs on the horizon. Then an unexpected savior appeared, a British correctional company offering to turn an abandoned nursing home on Highway 44 into a family immigrant detention center. It would employ 200 immigrant families have been pouring into Texas during the last 2 years, with no sign of slowing. 6,788 family members were caught crossing in May, 44,524 since October, most from Central America. Since 2014, the federal government has contracted to open 2 of the country's 3 family immigration centers in South Texas. Jim Wells County Commissioners held a public meeting at the fairgrounds, inviting representatives from Serco, the company hoping to contract with the government to run the center. The stage was set for the powerful emotions driving the national immigration debate nationwide to play out: worry about jobs, compassion for the downtrodden, fear for public safety. Which would win out? The county is not alone. Another heated public meeting unfolded recently about 300 miles west in Dimmit County, where a property owner proposed opening a detention center at a former oil field worker camp. He tried to dispel rumors the facility would house Syrians who could escape and murder residents. Concerned commissioners rejected that proposal, despite the promise of 400 jobs. Jim Wells County, population 41,000, is about 80% Latino, sandwiched between Republican areas to the north and the more liberal border region. Commission meetings are usually sparsely attended, but this evening, June 9, about 50 people drove past cornfields to the fairgrounds, some from 200 miles north in Austin, with handouts and a homemade sign that warned, "Putting kids in prison is child abuse." 2 representatives from Serco sat near the commissioners at the front of the room. Although they didn't wear suits or ties, they stood out in their dress shirts and slacks. Some in the crowd were open to the idea of a detention center if it meant jobs. "The whole town is hurting really badly," said Ramon Perez, 62, a retired beer distributor. Beside him, his wife nodded. "I'd love to see a business come in," said Anna Perez, 56, who works for the county and had seen 9 co-workers laid off days before. Kelly Thurman said she and her neighbors were interested in the proposal, but wanted more details. "We're wondering if Serco is going to bring their own people in, or is it going to bring jobs," said Thurman, 47, adding that she worried, with so many immigrants, they bring diseases. County Judge Pedro Trevino Jr. had convened the meeting by noting that he and the other 4 members of the commission wouldn't make a decision until after the meeting. "We're looking for all the resources we can get to diversify our economy," Trevino said, assuring the crowd that if the center opened, it would be secure. "We want to make sure they're safe and sound," he said of detained migrants. Then a Serco vice president, Carlo Uchello, made his pitch. The other immigrant family detention centers were prisons, he said, but Serco's would be more residential, without locked doors or fencing. Serco's facility would not house single men or criminals, he said. In the U.S., Serco already employs 10,000, and it would add at least 200 jobs locally. The county would get a cut of the profits, about $100,000 a year. After Uchello finished, the superintendent of a local school district got up to speak. My level of excitement is up, Samuel Bueno said, but added, several people have reached out to me with concerns. You said no single males. Are there complete families with men? About 75% of the families would be headed by women, 25% by men, Uchello said. Bueno questioned the conditions at other Serco facilities, especially those in Australia, where there had been news reports of employees mistreating detainees. We have had some problems there, Uchello conceded. Things tend to escalate when people see no way of getting out. Those were your employees, a man said from the audience. Yes, they were, Uchello said. Brenda Sellers rose to speak. A retired administrative assistant and former gun store owner, she was worried about the immigrants' educational, medical, and social service costs. Is Jim Wells County going to be responsible for paying for those things? Because we're broke, Sellers, 68, said with a dry laugh. Uchello said those costs would be covered by Serco and the federal government. He cited a book which he said found Serco did a better job of detaining people than the government. Corporations are held accountable where government is not, he said. Will there be a fence? Sellers asked. No, Uchello said. So it's very possible they could just wander off into the community? Bueno asked. Will there be guards? Sellers asked. Before Uchello could reply, she asked what would happen if detainees attacked the guards. Olivia Lopez, who had been shaking her head at the discussion, was shocked. These are mothers and children, she shouted. He said men, Sellers insisted. Uchello finally managed to get a word in. We're not going to have dogs and guards handcuffing people, he said. Sellers gave him a skeptical look. Now it was Lopez's turn to speak. She had been employed as a social worker at one of the immigrant family detention centers in Karnes County, about 90 miles north, but quit after witnessing what she said was neglect and abuse. I understand that it's jobs, she said, but there's a cost. A cost to your soul. I still can't sleep after being at Karnes. Lopez, 58, likened the facility to a prison, and said the new center would be the same, even as the Serco official shook his head and murmured, "It's not true." The more Lopez spoke, the more Commissioner Margie Gonzalez frowned.